Sounds good.
Again, Stephen, could just a minute at the end of the meeting?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It looks like Julie might be having some issues. I don't know. She keeps cutting in and out. And you are muted.
All right. And read the preamble. Good morning, everyone. In communication requirements of the Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 declaration, notice of this meeting posted. All board under the purview of the City Planning Department conduct meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. During the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the icon. For the chair or facilitator to recognize you, and be sure to select unmute and before you speak. When speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raise hand icon again at your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. All meeting activity is being recorded via WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Madam Chairwoman, the meeting is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. I had to exit out and come back in. I'm just going to keep my video off to keep a stable connection here. We'd like to call the October 8th, 2020 meeting to order. Mr. Hannah, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Kalikia? Director Collier?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer? Mr. Harrison?
Hello.
Hello.
This is Teresa Katz for the 3206 Prospect. You asked for David Breyer, I believe. I'm the property owner.
So we're just calling the roll right now.
Okay.
And could you please mute your microphone on your phone so that we don't it doesn't distract? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Maurice. Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Tarasik?
Here.
Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum. I would also point out that Carl Brunges from our staff is in attendance, as well as Stuart Hastings from the Department of Law. One item before we begin, the third item on the agenda, case 20-052, has been removed from the agenda at the request of the applicant.
Thank you for that note. We'll make sure that we just, if that's in the slideshow, we will just move on to our fourth applicant at that time. So then we will begin with public hearings. I do not believe we have any public hearings today. Move on to certificates of appropriateness. We'll start with our first applicant, which is located at 1285-89 East Boulevard, to discuss the renovation. We'd ask the owner or the representatives to please unmute, or I'm sorry, please use your raise hand function so you can be unmuted and state your name for our record and tell us about your project. One thing to note, the host will control the slides, so please state when you'd like the slides to advance. For the applicant, please use the raise hand function and tell us about your project.
Hi, this is Haley Novak. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm from Horton Harper Architects, and I can see that Abigail Sierralis, the owner, is also here on the call. But I can walk you through the presentation. So as you can see on this first page, we're discussing the renovation of the existing Switzer apartment building that's located at the corner of East 101st Street and then just north of Superior Avenue. As I mentioned, this is a renovation and it is a historic building. So this building has gone through the process with SHPO to receive tax credits. As you could see, I guess if you'd like, you can flip to the next page, but right, there you go. You can see that the existing building has a lot of historic features that we're hopefully going to be preserving through the renovation process. On this slide, I'm showing existing conditions photos of the facades that face the street. So that's the south facade and the east facade, and as well as views, from East Boulevard looking north and 101st Street looking south. On the next slide, here we go. You can see some of those existing features in more detail, specifically, the ornate brickwork. There's yellow and red brick with sandstone caps and sills and features around the windows as well. And some large elements that we're hoping to preserve here are the front porches that exist on the south side of the building. There are 4 porch structures. I believe right now just 2 are existing, fully or more substantially intact, and then 2 are less intact, and the hope is to rebuild them. And we can get more into that later down if you want to go to the next slide. Here again, some close-up features of the existing porches. On the first floor, they're constructed of masonry, again, the yellow and the red brick, as well as sandstone. And then above that, they're wood-framed construction with painted trim, molding and trim column details. And then on this slide, you can also see, again, some of the existing stonework around the front entries here that kind of are sandwiched between the porch structures. Right now, you'll see that the windows and the doors are covered, but the existing doors and windows do still exist in the project, and we'll be able to see those a little bit better from the interior photos. If you want to go to the next slide. Here we're showing the existing conditions. This is the north side of the building, and these are just the more utilitarian egress stairs. These are, again, at various states of kind of disrepair. Some have been already replaced. You can see the bottom center photo that is a little bit more current stair. However, right now, none of these stairs meet current egress codes, so that's something we'll be trying to address, and just making sure they're structurally sound. You can go on to the next slide. All right, as I was mentioning, here are the interior photos of the project, and I will mention, the paint has been cleaned up, so in reality, the majority of these interiors are in very decent shape for the age of the building, and a lot of the historic features are still intact, and the plan, of course, is to preserve them. So in a few of the apartments, the wood trim detailing, windows and doors on the inside are stained, and the intent will be to repair and just refinish those. You can also see that in other apartments that trim and casework has been painted. So again, just the hope is to repair that and repaint. A couple of the other features shown here are the existing built-ins, mosaic tile in the entry, and more existing cabinetry in the kitchens, all of which we'll be doing our best to preserve. The next slide, if you can. Here is the site plan, which should hopefully orient you a little bit better. So those, very pronounced porches at the front of the building, those are at the south side of the building, and you can see that there are 4. The building has 12 apartment units, and each one has its own porch off that side of the building. And then at the north face of the building, that's where we have our 3 sets of egress stairs, all of which we'll need to repair and bring up to code as best we can. And currently, existing parking surface is also on the north face of the lot. Feel free to go to the next slide. So here is our elevation of the main facade on the south side of the building. Again, showing the masonry first floor of those existing porches that we plan to rebuild. As I mentioned, 2 have pretty much, the wood structures have completely collapsed. And between the masonry first floor structures, there is repair work to be done there. There is bowing and cracking of the brick structures. So the hope is to repair that masonry to match what is existing as closely as possible. If new brickwork does have to be incorporated, the intent is to utilize that on the inside faces of the porches, where it'll be less visible from pedestrian ways or the right of way. And then on the upper levels, across the board, we're going to be providing new structure there. We need to meet structural code. However, while we're doing that, the intent is, again, to match the existing design as closely as possible. We'll be doing that by taking, extensive photographic evidence and reusing wood trim as we can. The intent is for the columns will be replaced either with wood or possibly fiberglass covers to match the existing style as closely as possible. And we will be adding, as you can see, new infill railing at those upper porches. We won't be trying to match any existing style there. Those, our intent is just to keep them very simple, and they'll just be a more modern design. Additionally, on these exterior facades will be, as I mentioned, the existing windows and storefronts do exist. So at those existing windows, in order to preserve them, the the intent is to just add storm windows on the exterior in order to improve thermal performance of the units. Those new storm windows will be painted. We've included the Sherwin-Williams color here if you're curious, but we'll be painting those a brown color to blend in with the facade, or complement the facade, I should say. Existing masonry will be tuck pointed, and any graffiti will be gently removed as needed. Let's see if I missed anything else. Again, the doors, those will also be preserved. They will just be repaired and repainted or refinished as required. Yeah, that's that there. If you want to go to the next slide. This is the second most visible facade. This is along 101st Street. Again, so you can see the profile of the porch. As I mentioned, the intent is just to match what is existing and to repair and tuck point and remove graffiti from the brick. Next slide, please. Here are those rear egress stairs. The stair on the left, page left, that will be that will end up being sort of a mix of the existing structure. We'll be repairing that structure and then adding railings to meet current code requirements, and we'll be beefing up the structure as needed to meet structural requirements. On the center and right page right stair, since we have some room to expand those stairs, we will have to bring those up to current code standards as far as tread and riser dimensions go. So they are a bit pulled out from where they currently exist on the building. However, the intent is for them to remain, within the side and rear yard setbacks. And these new stairs will be pressure treated wood, and they will be painted the same color as the windows, just a darker brown color. And same notes apply to the windows and the brick, repairing and adding storm windows there. You can go on to the next slide. This is a less visible face of the building. Same notes apply. Just wanted to include for you to see. And then if you'd like, you can go to, I think, yep, here are the plans. We'll skim through these quick just to give you an overview though. This is the basement. This floor will mainly just be used to house meters, and there'll be a small amount of tenant storage on this floor. You'd like to go on to the first floor slide. This shows kind of the typical layouts of the units. You can see that we have 4 units per floor, and we've got a mix of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. The really only interventions we'll be doing on the interior, besides preserving the historic features I've already discussed, is we'll be adding mechanical closet to meet current MEP needs of the apartments, and we'll be replacing or providing all new kitchen appliances, cabinetry, and then bathroom fixtures as well. But again, existing woodwork, wood floors, cabinetry, etc., will all be preserved and left as untouched as possible. And then if you want to go down to the next floor plan, the second and third floor plan are very similar to the first. Again, you'll see that all the porches at the front facade have, or each unit, I should say, has access to the porches at the front facade, as well as 2 egress stairs at the rear. And I think there's just one last slide. Just to show you, I know this is, the notes aren't to scale here for you to read, but just wanted to show that we've really worked through the structural design, kind of how to bring these porches up to current structural code while still maintaining the scale and the dimensions of the existing porches. We do have to sneak a steel column into those existing, round columns, and that steel will run down the corner piers of the porches, which the masonry piers form an L shape, which are kind of perfect to pocket the painted steel in. So they'll be pretty well camouflaged. And yeah, I guess that's really all I wanted to show there. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Thank
We
you.
have Mr. Harrison with his hand raised.
Okay, let's see. Do we have feedback from the committee first?
Madam Chair, I don't think anyone's here from the committee, but I can report that this was reviewed by the East Boulevard Design Review Committee last week, and it was approved as presented unanimously.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to committee feedback. Go ahead, Mr. Harrison, with any questions or comments you have about the project.
Thank you. Well, this is one of the most thrilling proposals that I've seen in my tenure on this commission. I think this is really an unbelievable reclamation of a building and approved the demolition of buildings in much better shape than this one is. So to see it literally brought back to life is really thrilling. And I really just have one curious question, which is to the course, is it did it just not have one?
This is Haley. I apologize. Could you repeat the question? You asked if there was a ornamental cornice. Was that it?
We've seen on buildings like this, they had either an ornamental wrought iron, an ornamental iron cornice or something like that that's fallen off or been taken off. It just seems like it's a very plain resolution at the top of this building. I just wondered if it had a cornice at one time.
I have seen the photos and I can't recall right now, but Abigail Sierra, she's on the call and she might remember. She wants to chime in.
Go ahead and unmute yourself. Or there you go. You're unmuted. Whoop.
Sorry, working on it. I don't know of any cornice at all. There's just that element at the very top. That's that arch. That's it.
Right. Why did you not to try to replicate the railings that original?
Yeah.
I don't know all the reasoning behind that. Again, Abigail, worked very closely with SHPO, and I'm not sure if that was possibly something they requested. Abigail, do you know?
Yes, there was only one railing left that we could have tried to replicate, but they were too short and they were going to be a safety issue being on second, third floor.
Okay. I can't commend you enough. This is really a terrific project and you have my support, of course.
Madam Chair, we have Director Collier, Adrian Bailey, and Michelle Anderson in that order.
All right.
Director Collier.
Stephen stole my question. My only question about this was the railing. Curious about the aluminum, and you have the wood columns there. I noticed you said wood or fiberglass is what you will be using. And I was just curious how the interface between an aluminum railing would appear against those very nice wood columns. And the only thing I have to say about this is that this project is, to me, very strategic because this building is a very substantial building that has set in this condition on a corridor that's underway with a lot of development. The Mayor's Transformation Initiative is in this zone, and you're right next to the Rockefeller Park. You know, so you have a lot of assets in this area, and this building was just sitting there like a sore thumb. And for you to be able to make the commitment to restoring this is tremendous. And this is going to be a booster shot, you know, in the area to further advance all the efforts that have been going on. This is a really good project, and I just want to, you know, commend you guys for taking it on. Thank you.
This is Haley again. Definitely agree. Abigail and Mike there deserve a lot of praise here. As far as your questions about the railings go, I believe since we're stabilizing these porch structures so much that the railings should be able just to anchor into the, you know, the wood porch structure, floor structure below. So the hope is to be able to hold off those or stand off the railings from those round columns. So they shouldn't necessarily even need to, you know, have a weird connection. It should be, yeah, pretty seamless there.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we had Adrian Bailey, then Michelle Anderson.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Hello? I've been having an issue with my computer. Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
I also commend everyone that's involved in this project for restoring the building as is, not changing too much of the existing structures and material and etc. So I commend you on that one. I have two questions. The staticking was occurring on my computer, but I had to look at the drawing and it answered my question that the existing windows is wood. I wanted to know the material and is the windows going to be existing. Could you, I see you have the storm window going over it. Are you going to have some type of like UV control or anything, or it's just a standard storm window that's going over it? Like control the amount of rain coming through, like sun rain, or it's just a standard storm window?
I know that we're using, I know that we're using Larson storm windows there, and our this project is hopefully going to be getting Enterprise Green Community Energy, rating for the building. So they have evaluated the building or the windows for how thermally they'll perform. I don't know if we've looked specifically into, the sun rays coming in, but I would assume that the windows possibly do have some control, but we can look into that closer. Because you're correct, the existing windows are wood framed and they're single paned right now. So kind of that's our main, concern there at the windows is just making sure the units themselves are, thermally comfortable for the new tenants.
The next question, there is street lighting around the building. My question is, are you going to have any light fixtures on the building itself?
Yes. Per code, because these entrances you see are, since they are egress exits, they will definitely have exterior lighting, and the porches themselves will also have lighting. I think for the most part, our lighting will be on sensors, so they'll come on at night at the doors, and we'll, shut off during the day to conserve energy. But yes, lighting has been considered and included in the plans.
Okay. All right, just make sure that that's submitted to staff, on another drawing just showing. Also, there's not much landscaping, it's a little bit. Have you looked at the landscape, or that's something that's going to be presented later?
You're correct that our sidewalk pretty much goes at least on the south end of the building right up to the property line, and then there is a pretty overgrown hedge of trees in front of the building. You saw those in the those first existing conditions photos. The local design review committee last week, they liked seeing that vegetation, and that actually, those trees I think do fall on the park's land. So I think at most those might be trimmed, but that wouldn't be under our control too much. But yeah, the hope is for at least the trees to stay.
One more
Chair, I think Abigail had some things to add to that. Adrian?
What you say?
I think Abigail had some things to add to your, in response to your questions.
Okay.
I just wanted to go back to the windows real quick. Haley answered the majority of it. I just wanted to point out that the storm windows are going to be high efficiency storm windows that were going to be added to the outside. And then the trees that are on the front, Haley's exactly right. Our property line borders that walkway, and that's it. We have no vegetation in the front at all. That all belongs to the cultural gardens. So it's on the cultural garden side. In the rear, we're working with the architects to work on what can happen in the back. But we're trying to work on vegetation between the drive or the parking lot and the neighborhood. But we're going to have to put up a fence to begin with to make the 6 foot before the vegetation gets tall enough.
Okay. Also, I noticed parking. How will individuals be parking, or does the site have any parking lot? Because I noticed it didn't see any.
Can I answer that one?
Sure, go ahead.
The parking has been quite the challenge, but the picture that Mr. Pettit had up just now, the lot to the north, we have been able to purchase that one. Yes, that one right there. That lot right there to the north, we've been able to purchase that one, and it allows for just enough parking to allow for what the code requires. And the vegetation I was referring to is to go between on the north side of that parking where the neighborhood begins.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we had Michelle Anderson next.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I was in this building about 13 years ago, and it was in an advanced state of deterioration at the time, although the bones are great, and the units are absolutely lovely. They're beautiful units. They're very spacious, lots of original built-ins. It's nice to see that you're preserving this and not scooping everything out and turning it into another gray box. I have a couple questions about the exterior porches. It looks like in the photos, in your renderings, that you will be maintaining the dentals, the trim. And I wanted to ask if you are going to be putting in columns that mimic the existing. Those columns are a key feature, key design element of that building. They're just beautiful. So I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Sure. This is Haley again, and you're correct that we do plan to keep the molding and trim as close to the existing design as possible. Again, we're going to take extensive photos of the areas to make sure it's replicated. We'll be saving some of the trim work if we can and reusing. And we'll also just be field measuring to ensure we're, accurately duplicating what's there. As far as the columns go, they're actually I think this elevation is a little bit misleading. We've added the vertical lines on them to imply that they're round, but they're actually smooth. They're very simple. So I think that almost helps us in kind of replicating the design because it's so smooth. If you go back to those existing photos, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about there. There's no ornate detailing on them.
Thank you. I commend the developer for taking on this project and doing such a nice.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead, Ms. Strickland. Oh, Ms. Strickland, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would commend the developer and the architect for their commitment to keeping the design as intact as original. It's just a wonderful project. I have a question about signage. What might be contemplated for signage either on the building or perhaps a monument sign at the parking lot?
This is Haley with the architect. That was not something we've, I guess, considered much on our end. I don't know if Abigail, if you had a plan for that.
Haley's correct. We haven't really discussed any signage, and we're a little bit limited because of SHPO as far as what we can add to the outside that might be permanent. We do plan on, we have talked about putting up a, not a plaque, but maybe a inside of the historical elements that we have found and that are part of this building. But that's going to be on the inside, not on the outside at all.
All right. I think, it might be nice to be able to identify this building somehow. And I would just suggest that if you develop any signage plan, that you just review that with Don. And obviously you'll have to get it approved by SHPO as well. But it would be nice to identify, the historical nature of this building. Thanks.
Any other questions from the commission members?
Mr. Pettit raised his hand. Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you. Staff would just like to echo all of the commendations to the developer for this project. Ms. Searles knows the effort that we had to make. There's a lot of credit that goes around at City Hall, from community development to the mayor's office, to determine that this building was eligible, that it was even in the National Register District, and to get the necessary letters of support. So I'm really happy that we're here today.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And I think it's been said multiple times. I mean, it's a wonderful project. Your proposal is a wonderful example of a restoration project. So thank you for the hard work related to this.
I'm not sure if Miss Anderson has her hand raised, or that might be from earlier.
It's from before. Sorry.
Okay. No hands raised.
Okay, if there are no more hands raised.
Oh, I take that back. We have Adrian, sorry.
I was gonna make a motion.
Oh. Go.
I would like to make a motion to approve the design as presented, although the color is going to be matching the existing, present, as color board to staff. And my computer was static, and so I wasn't sure about the light fixture presenting on the exterior of the building, to present that to staff.
Do we have a second on that motion?
We have Mr. Harrison with his hand raised.
It was to second. So I second.
All right, excellent. So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have further discussion? No? All right. Ms. Pettit, please take roll call, and if all commission members could open up their unmute themselves.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Collier,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your whole building. We look forward to its restoration.
Abigail has her hand raised.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. This has been definitely, Donald Pennant did say it correctly. It's been a lot of work from everybody to make this happen. So thank you.
You're welcome. Everyone at City Hall. We'll move on to our second applicants at 4939 Broadway. Digital sign for Sokol Greater Cleveland. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function so you can be unmuted, and then tell us about your project.
Looks like we have Bob Kunzen.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Bob Kunzen with Brilliant Electric Sign Company.
Welcome. Please tell us about your project.
Yes, this is for a single face message center, a ground sign. As you can see on the slide that's showing, that's the position, noting the setbacks from the street there. And if you go to the next slide, please. These are the dimensions of the sign. You will see that there is a black pole cover at the bottom. And next slide, please. These are views of how it will appear in the yard. As you are heading west on Pershing, it will all be black in the back. This is a single-sided sign to be seen from Broadview and eastbound traffic on Pershing. There will be landscaping by the owner placed around the sign. So the pole cover will not be very visible at all. There will also be landscaping as shown in the next slide, which will come up the backside. So with the back of the sign being black, it will be covered by the landscaping and shrubs, I guess you'd call them. I'm not real familiar with plants. I believe Mr. Paul Barrick is also in this meeting, the owner, and he may have some comments for you.
Mr. Burek, Madam Chair, we have Mr. Burek.
Good morning, everybody. Not the owner, but the president of the Sokol Greater Cleveland Association, which is the organization that owns and operates the building, all volunteer organization. And what we wanted to do with this sign is to reach out to the community. I've become president just recently, and one of the things that I want to pursue and emphasize is the connectivity within the community. A lot of the local organizations, such as the Slavic Village, the Broadway School of Music, the University Settlement, use our building for their meetings, etc. And it's our intent to, in fact, we have an agreement with them, and some of them are financially supporting the sign to promote the area. So it will be not only Sokol Greater Cleveland, which is a nationality Czech organization, but the larger community. The landscaping was always in plan. The local review wasn't presented when Brilliant submitted it to the local review, and Dave was pointed that out. And when you look at their photo montage, it is kind of stark, and we always intended to have landscaping with tall junipers in the back to hide the backside. And if you can go back to the landscaping slide, some double knockout rose bushes on end to bring the color, and barberry in the front, which is a little bit of a prickly bush that's low, that would keep people from maybe approaching the sign. And of course, we want to do it for the aesthetic, as well as to keep the lawn maintenance vehicles from the immediate vicinity of the sign, so we don't have them hit it and damage it. So it'd be sort of a buffer area. Again, the plan is to not only serve the Sokol Greater Cleveland, which I said is a ethnic-based athletic organization, but the larger community.
Madam Chair, we have Director Collier with his hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
No, so shall we hear from the local committee first, or would you like to go, Mr. Collier?
No, please, hear from the local committee, and then I'll make a comment.
Is there anyone here from the local committee?
Madam Chair, this went to the East Design Review Committee on September 22nd. It was approved with the conditions, and I believe it was just that landscaping be added to the signage. I don't know, Maurice, can you click on the next slide? I don't have the report in front of me. But I think the only condition was the addition of landscaping.
There's no report slide.
Okay, thank you.
That was correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Collier.
Yes, you have this particular view up because this was the view that I was going to ask to be illustrated. And I believe that the local committee's recommendation for landscaping probably was the attempt to address what I'm about to articulate. You know, in its state on the screen here, it looks like a television set was set in the lawn, literally. And I think the landscaping would help. But one important thing about, these digital signs, if you look at the building facade, you have the brick, the facade on the building. And I think that ground signs should actually pick up on the character of the structure that it represents. And I'm just wondering, did you guys ever think about some type of brick base or framing so that it starts to connect more with the building there? Or was landscaping sort of the less costly solution?
May I answer that?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. I just understand your comments, Director. It's the financial situation is really a driving factor. We have received some grants. We're barely making the cost as it is now. We still have to run electrical to that location, and I know that landmarks is not, or that's not really primary factor. The cost factor is not a driving determinant, but it is fact of life that we're trying to deal with within the organization.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to be overly, but I just, we have to be very with respect to these contemporary science solutions in some of these districts. Just again, I strongly believe we have to make sure that we're picking up, on the elements, of the structures that exist, particularly on these ground side. And, the landscaping, may be a substantial mitigator for the concern that I have, which is obvious on the screen, and the concern that the committee expressed. But, just making sure that if landscaping is an effective solution for the board, that that landscaping be maintained well, and that it, you don't drive by here and see that the landscaping has taken a beating over time, because really you need something to frame or to camouflage the rear of this sign and give it some type of framing. So those are my comments. Thank you.
I can address that again, if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Personally, I'm very sensitive to the appearance of I'm an architect too. And in fact, I sat on your board for a number of years. I'm very sensitive to the appearance of the building and how it represents the Czech community. And I understand that landscaping takes maintenance. I represent the Czech Garden and the Cultural Gardens projects that you just reviewed prior. And I know the intensity it takes to maintain landscaping. So I'm committed to that personally and as an organization.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have Adrian Bailey and then Stephen Harrison.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
There's a gray cover on the ground. Is that part of the project or related to the sign? Is that like an SS panel or something? It's on the left. You see a little small rectangle cover on the ground. Or is this just a...
It's just a notebook that was set there to use the tape measure.
Yeah, it's a little gray cover on all
Yes, I believe he said it was a tape measure.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, that's what I called. I'm sorry.
Mr. Kunzen?
Yes.
I think I can answer your question.
What was your first name?
Ms. Bailey, if you're talking about that laying on the ground, sort of a dark spot, is that what you're referring to?
What is that? Is that part of the signage?
That's my notepad that I lay down when we're staking out the.
Oh, so that's not part of the project. Okay.
No, it's not. It's just my notepad.
Okay, that's fine. All right. That's all I had.
We have Mr. Harrison, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I couldn't agree with Director more. I feel this has absolutely no aesthetic link to the building whatsoever. And I think that I'm certainly sensitive to the cost aspects, but, when trying to, value engineer a project like this, perhaps, you have to go with something less expensive in order to make it comply with, the rules of that have been given to you. And I feel that, a sign like this really must, in an historic district, relate to the building that's
colors, Steve?
announcing. And so I'm afraid I can't support it like this. I'm sorry.
Other questions?
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Kunzen.
Go ahead, Mr. Finzel.
Hello, we do have one suggestion, and that would be with Mr. Burrick's agreement. The exposed areas that you see the black, such as what we call the pole cover at the bottom, the back side of the sign, the cabinet around the edges, that could be painted with the texture paint, picking out one of the shades of the building to more go along with the building. With the landscaping, it may be a way to blend in more, as I hear your concern.
I would support that.
If I respond to that, I would have no objection if it pleases the committee.
Madam Chair, we have Ms. Bailey again.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Okay. Perfect. Steve, good deal. All right, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing
Go
you.
ahead, Ms. Bailey. And if others could put their mic on mute if you're not specifically speaking. Oh, looks like we may have lost Miss Bailey. Do we have other questions?
She's there, but okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear what was saying. I understand the comment on the signing, especially the base part being related to the building. So I didn't hear the agreement from the presenter. Do you agree with trying to make this related to the building? How you going to do that? Is it using brick or changing the color of the material you're using? What's your thought on it?
Bob, you wanna explain that again?
Yes, we could take a texture paint, kind of like a stucco, and paint that base as well as the back side of the sign to match one of the colors on the building. It would be, and Mr. Burrick supports that as a solution so that it would blend in with the building, well, quite a bit more.
And then I would say you wanna match the brick part. Keep that. You don't want it to stand out by being light. You would try to match the brick color.
All right, thank you. So the material you're gonna stay as is on the sign, just changing the color. All right, thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments?
No other hands raised, Madam Chair?
Okay. I would echo, with I think the adjustments to the color definitely improve this project, because right now it does look, very odd in the colors it is. Would someone like to put forward a motion?
Mr. Strickland, Madam Chair, we have Mr. Strickland.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would move to approve the project with the changing of the color of the pole cover and the back of the sign to a red brick textured paint to complement the building.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that motion with that condition?
I second.
Discussion?
Director Collier, I would just want to emphasize that the textured paint would be addition to the landscaping that's proposed, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I would just ask the owner and architect to please submit the final paint color and texture to staff for their review and record, more importantly.
We will do.
We will prepare that.
I just want to start saying, Madam Chairman, if I may, we appreciate and love what you do for the community. So just want to make sure that we're that there's an appreciation for what you do and understanding the situation that you're in. However, we want to make sure that this is a situation that is of long-term benefit for you and for the community. So, thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Director.
Great addition. If there's no other comments related to the project, Mr. Pettit, would you please take roll?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Director Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you for bringing this door. On
Thank you
to our
again. Have a
fourth
great day.
applicant. Thank you, you too. We'll move on to our on Plaza Apartments located at 3206 Prospect Avenue, roof replacement. The applicant, please use the raise hand function so we can unmute you and tell us about your project.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So the project on 3206 Prospect was, I think I sent a permit in early spring, not realizing that it's a historical building. We chose a color with the building owner, and because of everything going on, we couldn't come in to do the permit. The job ended up being done before approval. And I guess the big issue is the color of the metal that was used. Again, apologize for not being aware of this. The building owner wasn't aware of having to go through the process either. So, yeah, I don't know. Teresa Katz, the owner, I believe, is on as well. She might want to share some too.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, I guess there was a question as the color. The roof wasn't really need of being replaced, and it was time to do it. I didn't want to have to do it in an emergency and having to cost more. So I'm on the 5th floor, and I look around all the roofs, and I see a couple of them have metal, and they're green. So I went on, to do some research, and I look at a lot of other buildings, most of them being in Europe, to match the period around the 1900s. And I see that they either have copper, slate, or tile, but most of them have Spanish tile, which is reddish. So some of the windows have been painted with like a burgundy color, but I thought that was too dark for the roof. So I went with a color that would match more kind of like the tile, Spanish tile, that is very common in that period. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Local committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out that as the applicant stated, this permit application came in last spring. The staff contacted the contractor as soon as we got the permit, and we were made aware shortly thereafter that the work had already been completed. So we felt the need to take this through the process. It did go to the Euclid Corridor Design Review Committee on October 1st. They voted to disapprove the roof as built. Their comments were that the material and color are not appropriate for the existing building, that the work had been done without previous review and approval, and they had a concern for the precedent being set by approving this inappropriate color choice.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Questions or comments from the commission?
This is Ms. Bailey. Just want to make sure, is this a metal roof that they putting on or already installed?
It is a metal roof, yes.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, this is Carl with staff. I just want to put a timeline. We received the building permit it was put into RQ on July 16th, and the photos that were taken from the view were from July 25th. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Other questions or comments from the commission?
This is Bob Strickland. I had my hand raised, but haven't been acknowledged it. But can we have some historical context with regard to this building and what its original roof might have consisted of and what this metal roof was actually replacing?
Carl or Don, would you have any of that context information?
Madam Chair, this is Carl. Maurice, if you can move it to the historic photo, please. Next slide, or next, there. This is built in 1901. I believe it would have had either a slate. It had asphalt shingles that had that were black with some red tinging to it prior to this one being placed. But I think it would have had either asphalt or potentially slate shingles at this time.
And when was this photo? This photo was taken in 1949? Is that right?
That is correct. This is a BZA photo from that time.
And can you tell, Carl, what the material is on the roof as of that date?
I was not able to, however, and the building permit does not exist, and we were not able to find any other photos or documentation.
All right. Mr. Harrison, do you have any comments with regard to historical content based on your extensive knowledge of buildings of this type in this time period?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Strickland. I agree with Carl that it had slate in Cleveland, Ohio, but it could well have had like the suggest so the use of this yellow, often with brick, we see tile, and if you recall, there are plenty of buildings in Cleveland that have clay tile to them. Though this from 1949 seems to show a flatter texture than a tile roof. My question really is, you know, if we reject this and the applicant has to put on a new roof, I mean, that's a, and I wonder, was this an emergency situation that precipitated, you know, putting the roof on and not waiting through the process? I guess
asking if it was an emergency?
I'm trying to just why historic. I mean, certainly the city building permits department, shouldn't they have told you that it had to come before landmarks? Is this an emergency? Why did the one so fast?
It gets really windy out there, you know, even when it doesn't seem to be windy on the ground. And parts of the roof were already like flying around, you know, like little portions of it. Like you say, there is no record when the pitch roof was replaced. I've been here since 2006, and that roof was not fixed when the flat roof was fixed, which is already also 20 years old. So I know the building had a major renovation in the 80s. So my guess is that roof was from the 1980s. And I wanted to replace it with something sustainable, which metal is the most recyclable thing. I also look around and I saw metal roofs at the church, next door at the Union Building. I came to the conclusion of the color when I look extensively in this country and in Europe. The building periods have tile, like I said, slate or copper. Like in Toronto, I don't know. They either have a lot of money there or they like their buildings with the copper roofs, which eventually become green. They turn green, but that's something I couldn't afford. And
well, I do appreciate that you tried to research this, and that it wasn't a does not sound like that it was a you know, a rush to put on a roof that you just wanted aesthetically. That you did try to be a diligent owner of this property, and while you know, I think preferred that you researched it even more and perhaps consulted with an historical consultant. I do think that there is precedent for the red color with yellow brick, and so I'm inclined to support this, even though I do not want to ever set the precedent that people thing up and then afterwards. Troubled by that, but it does sound to me like you tried to at least do right by the building.
I didn't know it was going to go through your commission. If I had known, I would definitely have contacted you, because, you know, I did all this research on my own. I would have asked you, you know, definitely. But I appreciate that you appreciate me. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, this is
Madam Chair, we also had Michelle Anderson. Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, Mr. Strickland.
Right. I would add that it's always unfortunate that a project in a historic district, oftentimes owners don't understand what the process requires. I also fault the contractor if they're experienced in Cleveland working with historic structures, the contractor should know that he has to apply for a permit and go through the appropriate process before the work is started. So I lay most of the blame at the contractor and not the building owner specifically. But for the mistake that was made in the permitting process, I'd have to ask, would this roof likely be approved as being appropriate had they gone through the process appropriately? And I personally don't have a problem with either the material or the color, and so I can support approval of this project. Thank you.
We still have Miss Anderson.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The owner did incur a substantial expense putting on this high quality roof on the building. I'm just asking if it's possible, if there's a paint or a covering or a coating that can be applied if, they wanted to, change the color, relatively easily, if that's a possibility.
Would the owner like to respond?
This is the contractor. First, I'd like to comment on what the previous, I don't know his name, about the approval. I agree. A lot of that blame falls to me, even though I was ignorant about the process. I did not realize we are not experienced in historical buildings. The timeline on the permit, I don't know, isn't quite accurate. I don't have it in front of me, but I do know we originally applied in early spring. I think it was first, I called to the city. It was during the difficult time. I couldn't go in like I normally do. So I wanted to email it in, and I know you guys don't allow, or the city of Cleveland doesn't allow that. So I ended up finally mailing it in. Mail was slow, so I do not know the exact date the permit arrived in. The application arrived at the city. But I do know, like he said, the July 15th or so was when I was finally notified that it was a historical building. At that point, the project was done. As far as a paint, it's not impossible, but they wouldn't recommend doing something immediately because of the high, it's a new glossy surface, and we would have a bit of a problem adhering to that within the first couple of years.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Yes, Adrian. This is a technical question. As you know, the building was originally designed assuming for single asphalt roofing. So my question to the owner or the whomever, the other person on the call, the water coming down the metal seam roof, and is that a gutter that is going to hit? Because I see a downspout on the side. And do you have any sort of like the spikes at the end or almost near the gutter to control any ice that might slide off? Because remember, it's still Cleveland, cold weather, and this is a higher up elevation of a roof. So can you explain the technical aspect and how the water and ice going to be controlled off this metal roof? And is that a a gutter right at the point where the metal is? And because obviously that looks like a downspout on the side. Can you explain that? The technical element.
Yeah, so the existing gutters were left as is with downspouts, and those were pre-existing. We didn't do anything with gutters. And we did install the snow rail, it's called, to prevent ice and snow from sliding off the roof, the slippery metal roof, to make sure, we don't have any snow falling on pedestrians or whatever down below.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
We have no other hands raised.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. I actually work next to this building. I haven't been around there enough to see the installation yet. I guess the material doesn't bother me for this type of this type of installation, in the pitch and the building itself. The color is is the one item that, I guess I'm with Mr. Strickland. Could this be painted to allow for, it to be less, it's just due to its height related to everything else around it. It really is, makes it very noticeable in the pictures that you've shown. So I'm personally, grappling with that myself is, knowing that this is installed, are there other things that can be done to make this happen? Because it is it's hard when these things are done without our involvement. And that's truly why you're supposed to come here first, so that we don't end up in positions like this. Because in one way, someone's going to not be happy with the results. So that's just my personal opinion and thought on this. Is there further questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion for a vote?
Can I
Michelle Anderson and Bob Strickland.
Yes, was that the owner who'd like to add something?
Yes, I just want to add that, like the contractor said, the paint is really shiny now, and I have several photos that when in August, when they first started, when they finished with the roof, I believe it was August, it looked super bright and super red. But now that the light is being toned down, it doesn't look so red anymore. And I see other roofs that are metal. Through the years, the shine gets off and it becomes more settled. It wouldn't be that red in a couple of years. It would mimic the initial concept of the tile. That's it.
Mrs. Katz is correct. A brand new metal roof in the first even 6 months to a year is very shiny, which is what catches your eye right now is the gloss. I don't know exactly, I can't promise in a year, in 6 months or whatever, but it does definitely dull down with UV rays naturally. Not necessarily lose the color, but the actual shine will be duller in a couple years.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Harrison and Ms. Anderson and Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead. Was Mr. Harrison first, or was that Mr. Strickland that was first before?
Actually, it was Michelle Anderson, then Strickland, and then Harrison.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Would it be possible to proceed with a motion that allows us to revisit this in a year or two when the surface of the roof does down, might be able to get that coating of some sort or paint?
I don't know the answer to that. Ms. Pettit, can you give feedback on that, or Mr. Collier?
If you can repeat that scenario that you just outlined, I appreciate it, just so I'm clear.
Sure. Will we move to approve the project as it is, but have a contingency in there where we're going to revisit this in a year or two when it's possible to apply a coating of paint or, something to adjust the color?
Yes, you can make that motion, and if the applicant agrees, that can actually be a condition. I would say so.
Thank you, Director Collier.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland, I think was next, and Mr. Harrison.
Correct.
All right. Well, I commend Commissioner Anderson for her insights in suggesting that type of motion. So I would ask the owner right now if she's willing to commit to a condition applied to our approval that the color question could be revisited up to 2 years after this approval. I'm putting that question to the owner.
Okay, we agree on the color to mimic the tile? I don't understand the color. You want it to mimic slate?
Yeah,
or
I think right now,
the appropriate color for this will be tile, which is a muted red of what we have now.
right, the roof right now is not a muted red color.
Okay.
So
but,
we're all hopeful that in a couple years, as has been explained by the contractor, that it would be more muted and be more appropriate.
Yeah, I just, you don't mean for us to paint it like green or blue or other color, right?
That would be open to the approval of the commission once it's revisited.
I would probably need to be a little bit more specific now if there is a coating that we are looking for as a condition, or have them bring back the coating options so that we can, with their recommendation. I think from for the owner's sake, I think the commission is looking for, if this was a slate versus a terracotta tile versus an asphalt tile are three very different colored items. So I think that's where we need to get some alignment of what colors collectively we're suggesting. I don't think a metal roof to replicate a terracotta color is what we're looking for. I think it still have a very similar look, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't know other people's thoughts on this. So that they can have some, focus of what we're asking for. Mr. Strickland, do you have thoughts here, or Mr. Harrison?
So I would fashion a motion then that the installation be approved with the condition that the color would be revisited and that the owner would be requested to provide a color palette representing options that she would find acceptable for our consideration and ultimate approval.
So we have a motion. Do you have a second?
We never got to Mr. Harrison.
Okay, Mr. Harrison, do you feel you should state your question before we go to additional feedback after the motion, since there is a motion on the table?
Actually, I was going to say, shouldn't we then be tabling this? Because in effect, if we approve it, there's no real what's the I mean, it's already approved, so shouldn't we table this? I mean, does it have to be, is there a time of tabling? So we table it and suggest the owner come back in 6 months or a year for approval again, with this, knowing that if the color is not muted to an appropriate point, then. But I'm not sure if we. I mean, I can someone else answer the question about whether if we approve this today, what incentive is there in fact to come back later?
Madam Chair, we have Don Pettit and Carl Brunges probably with responses to that question.
Go ahead.
With due respect to Director Collier, I'm uncomfortable approving something today, approving a proposal that's before us today, and then having the applicant come back in 2 years to revisit it. It seems like I'm just concerned about how we're going to, 2 years of, 2 years of weathering, 2 years of whatever. I don't know that it just feels like we're putting off the decision that we ought to be making today. And I'm not even sure that I'm comfortable with, the ability for a contractor to put a coating on this roof or paint the roof without somehow compromising its integrity. I mean, I think we have to look at all those issues, but I'm uncomfortable approving an application today that we're going to bring back to the commission in 2 years. But that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I want to be clear with respect to my statement earlier. It wasn't an endorsement of more motion. The question was posed to me, can that motion be made? The committee has to make a motion that it deems appropriate. Okay, so I'm not endorsing that motion. What I do want to say is the fundamental issue here resting in work prior to getting an approval. And it's just by reviewing this is in a compromised state, given the fact that this is actually up. There could be action taken if in fact we wanted to go that route. But that obviously is not the sentiment of the commission. So we're trying to work with this applicant. What the applicant do is work with us, because we are in where we're trying to make the best out of a situation that is not ideal. So that applicant committing to whatever that thing is that the commission was for, is something that they're going to have to take seriously and consider. Now, whether this 2 year thing is far off, that's up for the commission to make that take whatever position it wants to take. You can table then they'll be in limbo for a while because it's up until they address the issues. You can take a more punitive action and say no, then they will probably have to remove this. It was also something that was brought up earlier with respect to the considerable amount of money that's been spent already. So again, this is not an ideal situation. And this is why the respect of the process is so important. All right. So I just want to be clear that statement made earlier was not an endorsement of a particular motion. The question was asked, could the motion be made? And the answer is yes, absolutely, that motion could be made, but the commission has to determine, what is, feasible given the circumstances that we're in. This is not ideal.
No, I would just, excuse me, I'm sorry. Well, this is not we don't know what the original was. It could well have been slate, but it could also have been red tile. I mean, there are churches with this yellow brick, this exact same yellow brick, and many of them have red tile roofs. So, I would like to say that I think that this is not necessarily ideal, but it's also not. It was made with due diligence by the owner, and it is not a situation that we would want to have happen here at this moment. And I you know, I guess I could support tabling this for 6 months. You know, weathered more. I would not feel comfortable kicking on the street further than that, though. I really, Strickland might perhaps want to reconsider the wording of his motion. But at this point, I feel like the owner is contrite. I would like to hear a little bit more assurance from the contractor that he now knows that he must not do work until the permit has been approved. And I think that's really where the action there was to be should be beyond my scope. So,
Madam Chair, we have Ms. Anderson and Mr. Strickland, and also Mr. Hastings.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the most important thing is if we do table it to put that coating on there is it would have to be an appropriate coating that would be resilient against, you know, Cleveland weather, things like hail and, you know, ice and, the sunshine, everything, to make sure that we don't end up with let's say, a gray pitted roof with barn red coming through. So that would be the most important. See if that's even feasible if we move in that direction.
Absolutely.
We have Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to add that it is very unfortunate when projects like this come before us, where the owner is trying to do the right thing, but has not followed the process appropriately. I think it's much better for an owner to be proactive and try to mitigate any potential water migration into their historic building, rather than, I mean, how many times have we seen demolition applications coming before us? It's almost always because of water infiltration, because the roofs haven't been maintained. So I commend this owner for being diligent about maintaining her historic building. And if they follow the process appropriately and come before us with this red color, we've approved red roofs before, and I would probably be in a position to approve it, even though the actual shade might not be what we would prefer. So I just add those comments. This is not the first time that we've been faced with approving a project that did not follow the process, and we did it post the work being completed. And we've approved those projects in the past. And I don't think that we necessarily have to be punitive, and I'm not concerned that we're setting an inappropriate precedent. We take each of these projects on an individual basis. And so I'm just considering the circumstances of this particular applicant.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Hastings next.
And Mr. Hastings.
This is Stu. I just wanted to let the commission know that if we do want to table, there are limits in the landmark ordinance of 6 months by mutual agreement. But there's also an opportunity at the end of the first, what's called the delay period, for a second and final delay period of an additional 6 months, again by mutual agreement between the applicant and the commission. Other than that, the ordinance does state that the commission shall approve, deny, or delay are the options given.
And delay is equal to tabling, correct?
Madam Chair, we have Adrian Bailey.
This is a question to the roof contractor, back to painting the color on this existing color. question is, technically, how would you do it with, by this being a metal roof? We know we're not going to paint directly over it. There's a technique, it's like electric staticking, that you can paint right over a metal and that paint bleeds into it and it be permanent. Could you explain if you have that type of process or anything? How would you paint over this existing metal roof? This is the roof contractor question.
So they would definitely, according to manufacturers, we would have to try to etch the surface of the existing paint to, basically eat into that a little bit. And then there would be a primer to try to adhere to that first before doing a final coat of paint over primer.
Well, what I mean is, by this being a metal roof, so are you going to use a technique of electrostatic and paint that's spraying and it blends in the metal, or are you just going to take a brush or whatever and take a special paint for metal and just paint right over a spray?
It would be applied with sprayers. Yes, is what is typically done with metal roofs.
It was okay. All right. Everyone hear the process, how that worked. And one thought that came to my mind, table it and maybe do a sample area of how this paint process would be over with the color that the commission may can select to, give us recommendation today with the table and just do a sample that's reachable for the members to see. So that's what I'm suggesting. Like, do a sample of a color that the members would like to see, and how that will work with the process.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Tarasic and then Mr. Strickland again.
Okay, I'm going to just make my comments really quick. I mean, knowing where we are in this project and for the year, a full tear off and replacement's probably not going to happen till the spring regardless. I think we've said fairly clearly that we're split, but many people do not like this color. I guess I personally am favoring tabling this to allow the contractor and the owner to do a little bit more due diligence to either bring us examples of what you found when you removed this roof, or historical photographs or precedent photographs of why you selected this color. But in addition to that, what other options there are to address this color and have it be a more conducive color with this style building. So that's just where I'm leaning right now, is that I think it's probably a tabling is appropriate, because the color on the roof and the color charts that I see on the screen do not look like the same right now. But with weathering, maybe they'll get closer to the same color, because obviously colors do change in the extra environment to become 3 times brighter, as we can see. But I think we probably need to table this and let the owner do some diligence of bringing forward options to address this. My personal opinion right now. So I feel like we're sort of going in a circle right now. Other comments from the commission?
We had Mr. Tarasic and then Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead, Mr. Tarasic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple comments and then questions. I think the first question I have is to the contractor. Are there any examples? Can there be any examples provided, just as a guideline for us, as to what this roof and this color of roof may look like in the future? In other words, has this roof been put on another structure in another location that has similar weather as it is here in Cleveland, that we might be able to have some type of idea going forward what the weathering, we could anticipate the weathering to look like? is there some other example of that that maybe you've done here or someplace else where the weathering is very similar that we could at least have an idea? The other question I think is to Mr. Hastings, and that is with respect to the statute that you had talked about on the tabling. Is the tabling therefore a total of 1 year, a maximum of 6 months with each tabling, or is it a tabling of 2 times? In other words, if we tabled this for now to come back in a month, would we then still have the option of tabling it for another 5 months and then perhaps another 6 after that? I guess the question is it a total of 1 year? From what I understand you to say is that it's a maximum of 1 time that it can be tabled and then 1 extension of 6 months after that. Is it a total of a year, regardless of how many times it's tabled, or what is the logistics behind the tabling there, so that we don't table it 1 time for a month or 2, have them come back, and then be stuck with only 1 more additional 6-month tabling time period after that?
That is an excellent question. As I read 161.05 D and E, it says that it's a maximum of 2 delays, each not to exceed 6 months. So you only have a year if you do a 6-month table and then a 6-month table after that. For the second table, there needs to be some additional findings by the commission, and if we get to that point, we can outline what those are. But it does contemplate only 2 delays.
So I would then make a comment to the commission that whatever we do as far as tabling is concerned with the first one, we do with the understanding that, at least for Mr. Hastings, that the maximum second time that we can table, that we can only table 1 more time, and that is for a period of only six additional months. Is my understanding correct, Mr. Hastings?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on what Mr. Hastings said? The chairwoman mentioned, due to the weather, that you really can't really do too much until spring, which is a good point. So it's a challenge, Mr. Hastings. I'm just wondering, even though today's date, if it's tabled today, can the table actually technically start in spring, because nothing can't really be done now? Next spring.
The answer to that is no. It's on the agenda for today, and we had to put it on the agenda within 45 days of the application, or it would be automatically granted. So if it is tabled or delayed, it'd be a maximum of 6 months from today.
So that would give the applicant 6 months from today to come up with other solutions, examples of installations or examples, precedent images of where this has been installed and how this color changes with the environment. And then 1 additional table from that point on, from whenever they do return.
And Madam Chair, we have Mr. Strickland waiting patiently.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
Thanks, Maurice, for recognizing that. Yeah, so my hand was raised, Madam Chair, to withdraw my motion as stated. And I would ask you to ask the applicant if they agree to the tabling of this certificate of appropriateness. And if that's the case, then I would put forth a motion to table for 6 months.
Okay. Would the owner agree to the tabling of the project? What this means is that we would not vote today and allow you to respond to the feedback you've received and then return. If you do not agree to that, then we can move forward with the vote, but it will be either to approve or to disapprove your project. So would the owner approve to the tabling or at this time?
David?
Teresa, I think that's a question for you.
Yeah, but in 6 months, I mean, we can't do anything to the roof. You think it's feasible to come back in 6 months?
We have Mr. Tarasik. Sure.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Okay, you asking me to justify the color in 6 months?
We're asking you to, if we table today, we would not vote. It would give you time to respond to our comments and questions. Some of them were to show us, how this color is a statement that it does change with time. You could provide photographs that would and show how this exact color in this type of environment does change and sort of tone down in the elements. You could provide or you could provide a coding color, if that's also an option that we want to consider it to change the color. That most of I've heard from the commission has issues with. So it's really up to you how you'd like to respond to our comments, but it gives you that time to do that without us taking an official vote that has, either the approval or disapproval associated with it.
I mean, I heard, I don't know how many people are in the committee, but I heard mixed answers. It looks like half of you are knowledgeable about the period architecture, and the other half just don't like the color. They didn't give a reason why. Obviously, I don't have money to do any fixing or any replacement whatsoever. We're in the middle of a pandemic. The building is a third empty, and another 10% of people don't have money to pay the rent. I don't know what the purpose of this landmark commission, but like somebody mentioned, I'm making an effort to keep the building, and I expect that you help me with that. I would request, I don't know, you're not giving me an option, so I'd be willing to present evidence of my decision to use that color, that material in 6 months. Yes, I accept, but it's mainly because you're not giving me any option.
Madam Chair, Mr. Tarasik has been also waiting patiently.
And Chair, thank you very much. If I understand the chair's comments earlier, even the most adverse decision made by this commission going forward, if tabling this was not an option, from a practical standpoint, would not be addressed until spring anyway. And it may or may not be correct in my understanding of that. So with the tabling of this for 6 months, it really does, in my opinion, become advantageous for the owner to do that so that no final decision is made today and then it can be revisited with more information presented to this commission 6 months from now. So I would be supportive of Mr. Strickland's motion if indeed the applicant is willing to accept the 6 months.
We have Mr. Harrison.
But the applicant does have options. I want to know that.
Absolutely. I mean, the options are to agree to the tabling, which does give you additional time to, respond to our feedback and bring this back for a future vote. Or you can ask for this to be voted on, which is the other option. So that, and we could move forward with a vote to either approve or disapprove. I guess I want to reiterate, and I think Mr. Tarasik just said it, is that we're trying to give you the time to do this so that we're not forced into a vote. And maybe time will be, a benefit for this roof color, and allow time for this to age, and also time for you to to research other things if needed to work within your budget to keep this building, in the condition that you want it to be and we want it to be, which is, maintaining your historic structure.
And we have Mr. Strickland. I'm not sure if he's going to modify his motion.
No, Madam Chair, I wanted to give the contractor an opportunity to respond to Commissioner Tarasic's query as to whether there's other projects in the area with this type of roof and this color that might be in a weathered state that we might see pictures of or actually visit.
Yes, so this manufacturer of metal is very popular in Northeast Ohio. So in answer to the question, as far as same conditions, Cleveland weather, there is a lot of roofs installed with that manufacturer. On the exact color, I would have to check into because I don't know for sure. I would have to go back to the manufacturer and request, some addresses or some contractors' information of people who have installed that color in the last 1 to 5 years. And see.
That's going to be very helpful for this applicant.
Understood. Yes, I mean, that is definitely something I can do immediately, is find out where and how long and how old these roofs are to do some research.
So my motion for clarification is it's open for the applicant to come back up to a maximum of 6 months. So my motion is to table, not absolutely for 6 months, but for a maximum of 6 months, giving the applicant an opportunity to present before that if you're able to accumulate the information and evidence that she really wants to present to justify this color.
So was a motion to table with the maximum length of 6 months was put forward, correct?
Yeah, so we have Mr. Tarasic.
I would like to second that motion, please.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Harrison and Mr. Pettit.
Go ahead, Mr.
So
Harrison.
I think the applicant, I'm not sure the applicant, after the recitation of her options, had a chance to restate whether or not she so it understands does the applicant now understand what the options are, and could she restate whether or not she agrees with the motion to table?
I agree. Did you hear me?
Yes, we heard you. She agrees.
Okay.
Mr. Pettit, you also had your hand up.
I was just also clarifying the agreement, so I think we're good now.
Perfect. Any further discussion?
No hands raised.
Mr. Pettit, will you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Director Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic, Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion to table passes unanimously.
Okay. So to the owner and the contractor, just say it's key that, Mr. Contractor, you help the owner with these, providing these precedent images, so that we can really move this forward for you. As it's been stated, we appreciate that you're trying to maintain your historic building, and we just want to create some agreement on the right color for this installation. But thank you for all of your dedication to this beautiful building we have.
Thank
And
you.
we look forward to seeing you in the future again. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll move on to our concept plans. We have one on the agenda today located at 10011 Clifton Boulevard, new construction of a multi. For the applicant, please use the raise hand function and we can open up your mics so they can tell us about your project.
Looks like we have Mr. Norton, Mr. Brickman, and Mr. Dimmitt, and Jessica Trevisano.
Excellent. Please unmute yourselves and tell us about your project.
Good morning, everybody. This is Zach Norton, and Andrew Brickman will be joining us momentarily.
Good morning. You are free to go ahead and tell us about your project.
I'm sorry, this is Scott Dimmitt also. Zach, are you going to lead in with Andrew, or are you?
There's Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew's just wrapping up over here next door. So this is for everyone here, for your understanding, this is my very first presentation for such a project with such a group. So thank you for your time. This is a small property, for those of you that are unfamiliar, that's set vacant for approximately 20 years. As Andrew likes to say, it's akin to a missing tooth and a smile. And with him being a neighbor to this property, he's very excited to possibly develop this very prominent piece of land at the intersection of West Boulevard and Clifton. We at Brickhouse, we've developed two nearby communities, one at 95 Lake at 9525 Edgewater, as well as our 117 community over at the intersection of Lake and 117 West 117th, which were both very successful, very well received projects for us. So the property that we are considering here, with the presentation that we've provided here, get a peek of the parcels. It is two parcels that are currently dissected diagonally at the southwest corner of Clifton and West Boulevard. And as we go through the presentation, we have some contextual images of the neighborhood. And you'll see a good diversity of multifamily homes, as well as larger single family homes. With an apartment building peeking back there. This is the property that we currently own. 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken on the timeline, it was there was a property project that was proposed with 2 residences on site attached that was determined not to be financially viable for the company. I don't know a whole lot more about it than there. This is a home on the northeast corner. This is one that you'll see in our renderings that we drew some inspiration from. We tried to cover as much of the surrounding neighborhood in each direction. And then we come to our rendering. So this is a perspective from Clifton looking to the southwest. So this is the facade that would face north onto Clifton. This concept, tentatively called Big House, we're still determining a community name for it, will consist of 5 fee simple attached townhomes with a presentation of a large home, not unlike that at the northeast corner of the intersection. And this elevation is the east-facing elevation that would be on West Boulevard. The maps here were prepared by Dimmitt. Scott, would you be able to add anything on this particular image and subsequent elevations?
Well, it's a little bit small, but I think you can see the overall site. We were respecting the 30-foot setback from the property lines and sidewalk. That's probably the nicest thing about this site context is sort of showing how that implied site setback is carried along Clifton and also West Boulevard. Do you want me to continue with that, Zach, or do you want to go through these?
I'll defer to you until Andrew is ready to chime in here.
Okay. As Zach explained, it's currently two diagonally subdivided lots. You can see that we're showing two prime townhouses with attached garages. Those are basically fronting Clifton, and those are two-story townhomes. They're combined together, again, as Zach pointed out, to try to have this read more as the sort of large house concept. So the exteriors would all basically blend together into one structure. Along the West Boulevard side, there's two three-story townhouses, residence 3 and 4, with garages the west, and all of the garages are fed from a hidden interior parking courtyard. To the west of that courtyard, basically we're suggesting a carriage house style structure. So that would have one unit above that for the total of 5, and a stair that's accessed by the west setback. We're respecting setbacks on both the west and south property line of 10 feet in place, and we are reusing the existing curb cut that was leading off of West Boulevard for the previous structure on site. These are a couple of the black and white elevations. The Clifton Boulevard facade, again, it's a two-story occupied structure with a two-story space at the corner of Clifton and West, anchored by a fireplace. All of the window openings are purposely restrained and sort of match the existing context per the rendering that we sent forward. It's an exterior plaster appearance, so we're working with a Stowe product that is almost a rubbed finish, a limestone finish in buff French gray tones. The idea was really to make this structure look like it's always been here, trying to be as respectful as we can for the great historical neighborhood in which I first located when I came to Cleveland. It has, we're proposing a weathered wood, aged look asphalt shingle roof, and also a very understated gray-brown brick base. But primarily it's sort of this off-white stucco with white trim and divided light windows. There were some questions, I think, in the design review about the height of the structure. Along the Clifton side, we're looking at about 26 feet to the spring point of the roof, and up to, let me just double check this, but I think 36 feet for the peak of the roof. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 34. So 30 would be the average of the roof slope. On the West Boulevard side, it's a little bit higher. That's a 36 foot measurement to the peak of the roof. We're at about 34 for the mean slope of the roof, and that springs at 30 something, 29. Next slide. And then this is showing the south elevation with the view into the courtyard, which is used mainly on the upper levels for bedroom spaces, and the side elevation of the three-story townhouse. The intention was to take the top floor of the townhouse and tuck it below the roof level, which is a tradition in evidence on both the adjoining Clifton and West Boulevard facades. And then you're seeing the carriage house element on the west facade, which is basically a garage base and a two-bedroom residence above that. I think that's That's sort of showing you the flavor of the materials and overall effective massing. Again, I think Andrew and Zach and their team's intention was to create the quietest and most respectful structure possible. And I think they drew on some excellent inspiration from the neighborhood.
I want to say something. Yep. Anything you want to add? No. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have Director Collier.
Let's hear from the local committee. Do we have any feedback from the local committee? Thank you for the presentation. Let's hear from the local committee first.
Jessica.
Thanks everyone for having me. My name is Jessica Trevisano. I'm the Economic Development Director for Cadell Improvement, and also I'm here on behalf of the Clifton and West Design Review Committee. The Clifton West Design Review Committee is really supportive of the massing, the density, and the overall design of this project. They commended Brick House on the design and believe it's contextual without being anything it's not. You know, it's within the context of the neighborhood, but is, you know, still new construction. They're also happy that it appears that due to the location of the site, it seems likely that some of these mature oak trees on the site can be preserved. A couple of the areas where the committee had some concerns or comments, which it looks like some of those were addressed, focusing on some of the specific materials. So the committee asked that the applicant consider using exterior applied muttons on the windows, and noted that it might help with the appearance of the scaling of those top windows on West Boulevard, which they said look, you know, pretty oversized compared to the windows below. They also suggested that Brick House consider adding a little bit more dimension in the color palette, which it looks like they have done that in this rendering. They had suggested using different texture or colors for the doors, adding details to the chimneys, and also consider using windows that are not white, since it's really a monochrome project as presented. And then the only other thing that the committee asked was that Brick House investigate using stucco as opposed to some sort of composite or EIFS material, as they noted that there's been some failures with that material on the West 117th project. But overall, the local design review committee is very excited, very supportive of this project, and you know, thinks that it's a huge improvement on what has been proposed for this site in the past.
Madam Chair, we also have Councilman Mooney and Mr. Pettit.
Go ahead, Mr. Mooney.
Thank you. I do not have a position today, but I just did want to comment. You know, Mr. Brickman and his group has been very accommodating. They've met with me, offered to meet with me more than I've been willing to. But I think the plans look very nice. You know, I've met with Mr. Bowen just over a week ago, and he went over all this with me on site. I've met 2 people on site, and I like the plans. I am going to have a community meeting in the area for residents. I'm in the process of trying to do that, respecting COVID. But and so that being said, and I don't have a position, my only concerns is that this is an A1 single family district. And this is 5 units on 2 lots that are single family. But that aside, the driveway concerns me too, because with 5 2-car garages, you have potentially 10 cars in this one driveway. It's not reflected here, but the house just to the south of this shares a driveway, would share the driveway with this. So it's a large single family house. So you'd have, you know, up to 10 cars plus 1 or 2 cars from the neighbor that shares this driveway through an easement, all using one driveway and the congestion. However, like I said, I'm not taking a position. I think there's a lot of wonderful things about this. There's some things that just give me concern, and I'm going to still keep in contact with Mr. Bowen and have this community meeting. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we still have Director Collier and also Mr. Pettit.
Yes, thank you. Yes, a couple of things. I've been out here at this site, and I actually was able to kind of walk the site, very familiar with the area. And I just want to highlight a couple different things that were to me about this project. It is very difficult to do new construction from the ground up and be contextual and respect the historic district. And I believe out of many projects that I've seen, this developer somehow pulled it off. And I think pulled it off pretty well. When you look at the corner lot here, and one thing that stood out for me was the chimney element. The chimney element on that corner almost makes it look like this project has been here for a long time. And if you look at the other three corners of this intersection, the scale, the materials, it really does pick up on the character of the neighborhood. And when you look at how the property is set back, it's in line with the properties along West Boulevard. It's in line with the properties along Clifton. And the fact that this is a multi-unit parcel with having the one curb cut and the parking in the back, I think is very intelligent. And it's something that we obviously as a department support because this is a walkable neighborhood and it continues to build on that walkability. The other thing that I do, want to highlight is that it doesn't overemphasize the corner. We had a project that was proposed some years back with respect to this corner, and it exaggerated its placement on the corner, and it didn't fit. It was too great of an attempt to try to make this corner like be feature when it's one of three other corners in this intersection. So I believe that this development project kind of hits this just right with respect to its scale, its architectural features, its materiality, and it looks, like a property that's commensurate, with the integrity of this district because it's a very strong district. I had a conversation with former man who actually lives a couple of blocks from here, and he saw this and was, pretty enthralled and thrilled by it, and it just makes a lot of sense to us from a, planning standpoint, and, to make a multi tenant parcel, appear with this sort of single family feel, I think that was pretty masterful. So we support this. I strongly support this. I think this is a really intelligent solution. And I just don't think that anybody can just pull this off. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we now have Mr. Pettit, Mr. Harrison, and Ms. Bailey.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, we did receive a letter this morning from Chris Ronayne, president of University Circle Incorporated, and a resident of the neighborhood supporting the project. He finds it to be an elegant concept that will further enhance the neighborhood.
Excellent. Thank you. Go ahead. Next, Maurice.
Mr. Harrison.
Design, I really don't have much to ask, except I do want to just make sure that you have emphasis and that they're not. And don't take offense if, but I want to make sure that's the case.
Yeah, yes, this is Scott Dimmitt. I can confirm that we're proposing emphasis in the columns. They're very elegant, but they do slope inward and have a classically inspired base and capital.
Thank you very much.
And I believe we have Ms. Bailey next.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Yes, I would like to commend the architect with this beautiful design. I mean, it really does blend in with the neighborhood. Could you go back to the first perspective, movies before you started changing it? I don't know what view that is. The new construction perspective. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. It's another new. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, right there. Question to the architect. Just want to make sure this your attention of doing this. I noticed the second floor windows, the bay windows on the side has marlins have them in the windows, but below it does not have it. Is that how you want it? Martin?
That was basically the intention was to have the smaller transom windows and double hung windows with divided lights, and then since your main living level for these two residences is going to be at that floor, that would be your living room inside there. So the idea was that in the same fashion that we were fronting Clifton with a window like that, we would have the same here. It's just in this case, it's elevated to the second floor in recognition of the fact that this is a 3-story townhouse.
Okay. All right. And they double hung and is operable. The ones in the large one in the middle also it's double hung. It's not fixed. You can open it up in the middle. The larger windows.
Well, for the bay windows, the center larger piece would be fixed. And
that's what I thought. Okay.
The two ones on the side are operable. And at the side window that's above the porch entry, that would be a conventional double hung. So that would be able to also be operable.
Okay. All right. Like I say, this is really a beautiful project in the design. You just really paid a lot of detail to everything, the location of the windows and the balcony. It's just all blends in very well.
Thank you very much.
And Ms. Trott, you are the last one with the hand raised.
I thought I'd raise my hand this time. I just want to commend both the architect and the developer for this project. I've lived in this area for over 20 years and seen everything come forward on this corner. And I think this is by far one of the best solutions that respects the character of the neighborhood. So thank you for your diligence of trying to respect that. My only feedback would be close to committee is really the materiality. And if you're doing Stowe products and EFS product, I would deter you or encourage you to use more of the stucco, at least on the front facades and the facades that are visible, like the elevations that we're seeing here, so the east sides, because there has been some issues with the products that are installed on your development at 117 and Lake. So, and also the texture of those, for the coloring is very close to the sandstone there, but the texture really does not provide that sort of, it doesn't perceive that it really is the real stucco. The texture is just off. So I would encourage you to study the texture and or the material for this. I think your inspiration precedent image that you reference of the building on the northeast corner is a great one to look at for what the texture should be, in this location, because I think you're so close to being spot on to being contextual that would just be take really over and really take this to one of the highest levels of development in this area. And then my last comment would just be in this view, the windows on the third floor, and is it true the bay, and I'm sorry if we just said this, the bay starts on the second floor and goes all the way up to and through the third floor so that the center windows are both projecting out for both the second floor and third floor. Is that correct?
That was our intention. Yes, that's the master bedroom at the top, and then the double hung window to the side is the master bathroom.
Give a little bit more breadth at that ridge line. You know, I love the windows, but at the same time, I think you've done such a great job of respecting the proportions of the classical architecture in this area. That sort of pushes it a little bit beyond. Maybe a closer view without the tree in front would allow us to see it a little bit more, or maybe a bigger screen on my side would help too. Since I am on a small computer. But that would just be, it looks a little bit more out of proportion as you take it up, to me personally, as you take it up to the third floor. So just, I would encourage you to look at that a little bit further as you continue developing your project. And then the doors color too, I think would be a great addition, because like the development at 117th in Clifton, the white doors that have been installed there to allow people the opportunity to paint it themselves and give them their own character have not. And it's a stark, color variation from, the beautiful warm materials that you used everywhere else. And then, the stark white doors. So I would encourage you to, paint those doors to provide some more contrast here and interest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Points well taken.
Okay, I'm not sure if we have Mr. Harrison. Did you raise your hand again?
Can we say something? Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, it's Zach Norton and Andrew Brickman from Brickhouse Partners. We would just like to thank all of you for your time and for your input, for your support and for your suggestions. In regards to this project, I happen to live right around the corner and live in the neighborhood. I live at 95 Lake, which is the community that I developed of 10 townhomes across from Edgewater Park on 95th. There was a couple comments that were made about material failure at our other project at 117, and I just wanted to clarify that there hasn't been any material failure. What's happened was one of the moving trucks smashed into the side of the building, and we've been waiting to replace that piece that was damaged by the moving truck. And that can happen with any type of material. But overall, we're extremely excited. When this property became available, and I drive by it all the time, I wanted to, it's a small project for us, but it's an important project because I'm going to look at it all day, and I didn't want some other developer to screw it up. So I feel very passionate about this. It's a main entryway onto the west side of Cleveland, and we wanted to see the right project here, and collaborated with our team and with the team from Dimmitt, and input from local neighbors and the board. And it's something that we're extremely proud of and anxious to get started on building. So thank you again for your input, your time, and your suggestions and comments.
Madam Chair, Councilman Mooney still has his hand raised. I wasn't sure if he had an additional comment.
Oh, that was an accident. No more comments.
Okay. Well, since this was a concept review, obviously by your last statement, I hope you have received the feedback that you were looking for, or clear feedback related to your project. We look forward to seeing you return for the final presentation with more detailed materials for the project. I know in a remote setting that's a little weird, but having it within your digital presentation and or submitting it to staff are the best way to allow us to get full understanding of your materials moving forward. So we look forward to seeing you at a future presentation.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. We appreciate and enjoy this beautiful day, you all. Thank you.
We have Councilman again. Did
Yeah,
you
I'm
raise your hand
sorry.
again?
Isn't this on the agenda again for the 22nd?
Don, can you answer to that?
That's the plan. Obviously, that will be contingent on, getting the presentations in by our deadline, but right now the plan is to bring it back for final on the 22nd.
Don, when's the date that you need the materials by?
I would need it a week before the 22nd, which would be the 15th.
Okay.
I would also point out that this is scheduled to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals on the 19th for the variance requests. And I just want the commission to be aware that that will happen before we give it final approval. But I think we've heard enough today to suggest that we support the project.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have Carl and Jessica.
Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will need to go back before the local design review committee for their final approval first. And just because it's in our ordinance, should mention that there needs to be a tree preservation plan also submitted with this as well. Thank you.
Great notes. The tree preservation plan. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, just to add to what Carl mentioned, the Clifton West Design Review, the next meeting is scheduled for this Monday, the 12th, just so that the applicants know when our next meeting would be on. I don't know if that's enough time to turn around the tree plan or if that needs to come to the local design review, but just wanted to make sure that date was out there.
Right. I think we can make that date, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else on this project? No? Okay. Well, then we will move on to landmarks nominations. I do not believe we have any on our agenda today. We'll move on to any meetings.
Madam Chair, we just have one set of minutes to act on today, and that's the meeting of July 23rd.
Is there any questions or comments from the commission about these meeting minutes? If not, would let's put forward a motion to approve.
I'd like to put forth a motion.
Do you have a motion? Do you have a second?
Second.
Strickland, I'll second.
Thank you. We have 2 seconds. Wonderful. Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Pettit, could you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Director Collier? Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison? Thank you.
There you go.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott? The minutes are approved unanimously.
Excellent. We'll move on to administrative reports.
I just have one thing to report on. This past Monday, the Board of Zoning Appeals reviewed an appeal of our decision regarding the awning at Saucy Brew Works. The outcome was that the board determined that we were not arbitrary or capricious in our decision but they also voted to let the awning stand as installed. And I'm still confused about what the final resolution was, but I think it's based on some revisiting of the awning at some date uncertain in the future. But essentially, they support the retention of the awning, but they passed on blaming us in terms of our process. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that.
Interesting. Thank you. Any other announcements or reports, I should say?
I think we have one other piece of business, is to pass a resolution today thanking and congratulating and offering our best wishes to Mr. Harrison, who will be leaving us after this meeting. And I think he also has some things he wants to talk to us about too.
Go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
Excuse me, are we staying on the record and live streaming as well?
We still haven't adjourned.
Okay, just checking.
Should we adjourn first and then continue the conversation, or keep it on the record?
Keep it on the record.
I would
Okay.
agree with that.
Go ahead, Mr. Harrison, then.
That's serve on this commission. And while it's a bittersweet moment for me. I'm sad to leave Cleveland and the Cleveland Museum of Art. I've been a curator for the past 15 years. And I'm to a charming town in Utica, New York, to be the deputy director of the museum. And so I'm looking forward to that, but I'm very sad to leave Cleveland. And it has been such a privilege to serve with all of you. Thank you very much, Chairman Trott, for the leadership this I've been on. So to from all of you, particularly you, Director Collier, about responsible development within historic districts. So, you all welcomed me, and such a collegial discussion through this last year and a half, and I was most enjoyable, most interesting things that I have done in Cleveland, and I really, really want to wish all of you and to much I have and support during I'm saying, I hope if you're coming ever through Utica, you'll stop at the Munson Williams Proctor Institute and let me show you around. So.
Yeah. If I may say a few words, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Stephen, I just want to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, this is no fluff. This is, not just some politically correct statement. I just want to say I appreciate intellect. And I believe that you've added to the intellectual capacity of this commission. Even when we didn't agree on items, I could understand clearly where you were coming from. And one of the things that I think that makes democracy work is when you have different opinions and people can express them clearly, intelligently, and they can be digested and people can respect each other. And, you brought a lot of integrity to the commission. And I just want to say, I personally appreciate that. I also appreciate your candor. You don't hold or mince words. And I hope that's something that you continue to carry with you in your new role, because I think the world needs more of that and less BS. So I really thank you for your time here and just your intellect and passion, that you brought to this commission. So thank you so much. And you're going to be very difficult to replace.
I would. I would say passion for design and for wanting to be good stewards to our historical districts and buildings, and always trying to be right by the building, which is always a situation, especially like the ones we reviewed earlier today. But bringing the context of what could have been there or would have been there to allow us to make better decisions was always appreciated. So thank you for the last year and a half. It's been wonderful having you on the commission, and you'll be very much missed. And good luck. And I might see you in Utica if I go see my parents in Rochester, New York.
This is Adrian. I would like to make it. Sorry.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, Adrian, I was going to say look.
Okay. Oh, my apology. Mr. Harrison, I enjoyed listening to your comments, especially as security on the history of the materials. I find that very fascinating. On you explaining during the time period of colors and materials. I really appreciate you using that knowledge for the landmarks. Thank you very much, and enjoy your new experience in New York.
Thank you.
Stephen, this is Bob Strickland. I have a question. What's your timeline for leaving Cleveland? Are we going to have a chance to have a beer together before you leave?
Very kind of you. I'm afraid I have to be in my desk on November 2nd. If a moment next week or the week after, that would be perfect. So do email me and let's do that. I would enjoy that very much.
I'll be in my schedule and make sure that happens. That'd be great.
Well, please let us know, because I would love to join also. Maybe we'll go sit under the canopy that we just approved and have a beer. Stephen, thank you and good luck with everything, and you will be missed. So, and let us know when you're going to get together.
Thank you very much. Indeed. Thank you so much.
With that, I don't think we have anything else on our agenda.
Indeed.
Or is it correct? Anything else from anybody else? No? Then we are adjourned. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see everyone except for Stephen in 2 weeks. Have a great day.
Take care.
You too. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you, Stephen.